Hi, and thank you for joining our webinar this morning, brought to you by BNP Paribas, where we're going to be looking at the hot topic in the post-trade industry today, the T+1 settlement cycle being introduced in the US. We're going to look at it particularly with a view to custody operations. Now, I think it's fair to say that the move to T+1 in the US in May is going to be challenging for many market players. But in this webinar, we're going to particularly look into what this move to T+1 settlement will mean for players located outside of the US. We've got a great panel of experts with us this morning, so please feel very free to ask questions. If you send the questions to us, we'll try and get to them at the end of the formal presentation, and if we don't manage to do that, we'll get back to you anyway. So please feel very welcome to ask questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel to you. We have Brian Fagan, who heads up our America's Cash Equities Markets business. We have Dilla Jivav, who works in our middle office services within Security Services. We also have Emmanuel Rees, who's our local custody expert in the US. Sylvia Sanchin, who heads up our settlement capabilities at Security Services. And we have the busiest man in the company. We have Jan Galland, who heads up the T+1 program change within Security Services at BNP Paribas. So it's a great panel, and I look forward to this morning. So let's kick off and get into this. I'll begin with Brian, maybe. Brian, I think it's fair to say that you've been involved in most of the discussions that are going on at the US, in the US about this move to T+1. Could you just give us an overview of what you think the biggest challenges are? What are clients talking to you about? What are the concerns about this move to T+1 settlement?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. The obvious one is really the one that takes up most of the time, which is about time. As we progressively reduce the settlement cycle from +5 to +3 to +2 now to +1, as time goes shorter, it's not when everything goes right that everyone's concerned about. It's when things don't go right, when there are issues and questions and challenges that occur in a normal settlement that need to be rectified to make sure that settlement occurs, on time and efficiently. I think the main issues that people really are focused on right now is how to mitigate those issues, to ensure settlement in an even shortened cycle. When there are challenges that occur, whether they be from the trading side, from clearance and settlement, or anything in between, like something as simple as a price change, something of that nature. So most of the discussion is really about how to apply the appropriate resources to make sure that both the technology and the staff are able to deal with those instances.
Okay, but are there any topics that you think aren't just getting the attention that they merit? Are there some icebergs looking out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that comes up a lot from people who are very much in the weeds on this is around global ETFs and certainly, or anything that's cross-border. When you think about the creation and redemption process of a global ETF, say an ETF traded in the US that has global underlyings, on a T+2 basis, that's a challenge to settle all of the individual components in an efficient way to ensure timely settlement. With one less day, and in fact less than that, given the way the clock works globally, it becomes even more challenging. So I think both the providers of these ETFs, as well as the APs who do the creation redemption, feel that there's a tremendous challenge there, and increasingly so the users of these ETFs are starting to wake up to that idea that there's really a very different kind of settlement cycle that's going to impact this particular product and any product that is cross-border.
Well, that's certainly something to watch out for. Can I move across to Jan now? And Jan, could I ask you a little bit about how are we organized at BNP Paribas to support our clients through the changes to T+1?
Absolutely, Alan. Thank you for the question, and hello, everyone. Let me begin by saying that our teams are familiar with lifecycle changes. In 2017, the US moved from T+3 to T+2. With the move to T1, the devil is in the details. To address the level of complexity, we consider the entire trade life cycle from new account creation and execution to settlement of the trade, and have looked to foster collaboration between all divisions of the bank. Funding, middle office services, transfer agent, custody, to name a few, every product and service is embedded into our governance. With clients at the heart of our business, we have dedicated streams to review bespoke impacts and continuously engage with our clients to socialize any change they may experience. Finally, our governance expands well beyond the US. We have set up international relays to cover all of the impacted geographies. We have in mind that T1 scheduling changes will be specifically challenging for non-US time zones. For this reason, we've worked to design a solution to receive instructions later on trade date and allow meeting the recommended affirmation cutoff on trade.
Super. Emmanuel, could I ask you to help me with something which I find a little bit confusing sometimes? I've had a lot of talk about rule changes, 15C62 and 2042. I understand they're significant, but can you explain why they're significant? And what have they got to do with the affirmation process, which quite honestly is something that I sometimes struggle with. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about the affirmation process as well.
Sure. Thank you, Alan. It is true that I will start to clarify the affirmation process because there are a lot of questions around this unique US concept, but eventually it's similar to the matching process in other markets. So what is the affirmation? It's really an acknowledgement by the affirming party that the investment manager trade details match with the broker-dealer confirmation at DTCC. So the affirmation process is nothing new, but with the change of securities settlement cycle to T+1 and yet introduction of 15C62, it becomes mandatory for US broker-dealer to affirm their transaction by the end of trade date. So the affirmation can be done by the institution or delegated to a third party, which can be a custodian or a prime broker. BNP Paribas, as a custodian, already processed the affirmation on behalf of the client that requested it. The new rule introduced a new affirmation cutoff at DTCC. This new cutoff at DTCC is 9 p.m. on trade date, while the settlement cutoff will not change neither at DTCC or BNP Paribas. So the transaction that will be affirmed by 9 p.m. will settle during the DTCC nighttime cycle. The trades that are eligible for affirmation are the institutional trade. So it means that free of payment, securities lending, repo, or money market instrument primary issuance are not affirmed. The affirmation process is a matching process, but it doesn't guarantee the settlement. It provides certainty that both parties agreed that the trade details are comparable. But if you are in a situation where the delivering party is short of share or the receiver doesn't have cash, it may match, but it will not settle until the stocks are available. At DTCC, the platform where the affirmation happens is called Trade Seat ID. So it is the platform where the broker will enter the ID confirm and where the custodian or the affirming party will match the confirm ID from the broker. In fact, we talked about affirmation by 9 p.m., but transactions that affirm late or that are not affirmed can still settle later during the settlement cycle at DTCC. However, they have more chance to fail because you have less time to repair the exception, and the cost of settlement at DTCC is higher. Finally, BNP Paribas supports various affirmation models where we either affirm on behalf of the client or we support the settlement of client transactions that have their own trade suite ID and that are willing to self-affirm their transactions.
Super. Thank you for that. That helps me a lot. Now, Jan, I've got to say, you look very calm and composed, considering that we are only 7 months away from this. How would you assess the market's readiness? Can you tell us a little bit about how testing is going?
The clock is ticking, Alan, indeed. And I'm glad you're asking about testing. This is definitely an area that keeps our team busy at the moment. The DTC testing window opened to direct market participants on August 14th, and it will be available for a period of 9 months. In terms of readiness, what we are seeing is that it varies greatly from one participant to the other, depending on the size, but also the type of firm. As a result, finding a partner to test with can prove challenging. At BNP Paribas, we benefit immensely from our integrated banking model. With products and services ranging from execution to clearing all the way to custody, we are able to quickly mobilize all businesses and test the full end-to-end flows, both functionally and operationally. This is a critical success factor. I can give you 2 areas where we are deliberately choosing to focus our testing. 1, operational efficiencies. We're looking to eliminate the areas of frictions, all legacy processes, and create automation where possible. The second one would be non-standard events, public holidays, double settlement days, outages, any scenario which can help demonstrate the resiliency of our platforms. T1 testing is also the perfect opportunity for us to validate our follow-the-sun model. With a day less to settle trades, we want to ensure clients are supported during the critical hours of the US market. At the market level, we're actively engaged on various industry forums where we exchange with peers on testing, lessons learned, and ways to better prepare for the transition. With that, we were ready to participate on day 1 and have progressed quite well since.
That's reassuring. So let's have a little focus on Europe, because of something's complex in America, it often becomes complicated when you get to Europe. Now, Sylvia, can we move to you? In both the UK and within the EU, the authorities have begun discussing what's going to happen about shortening settlement cycles. And there's many industry associations involved in this, and I'm sure we're playing a lead role in all these discussions. Could you give us a status update about what's happening? I've heard about task forces. What's happening with them? How's it all going?
Sure. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, indeed, there are a lot of discussions ongoing in Europe as we speak. They started, right after US and Canada deciding to move to T1 in May 2024. So there was a momentum now that led UK and Europe to start discussing the T1 topic. Although, considerations and approaches definitely differ if we look at UK and Europe markets. So looking at the process of what happened, UK started first, creating an accelerated T+1 task force. And as you said, BNP is a part of this and is co-leading one of the stream of this UK task force. Right after, also, Europe created a cross-industry work stream to discuss the T1 implications for such a fragmented market like the European one. I can say that as we speak, the consensus on the potential issues and benefits has not yet been reached, and expectations about the ideal state don't exist yet. Said that, when it comes to Europe, we need to consider specifically how complex the market structure is in the region, and how many actors coexist in this ecosystem. So you can see a slide where we wanted to visually make clear how different is the European market structure compared to the US one, which is a straightforward one. And instead in Europe, we have, as you can read, 20 currencies versus the one currency of the US, 22 CSDs, 18 CCPs, 35 listing exchanges, 41 trading exchanges. And there are a lot of interconnections between those actors, and we believe that the best approach is really to go ahead in the detailed analysis of what are the challenges of a possible move to T+1 for Europe, even before thinking about any possible date for the move itself. And this is what Europe is currently doing with the task forces that have been created. So from a cross-industry perspective, there was an initial task force, but then this was turned into 9 sub-working groups. So there is a steering group, and there are 9 sub-working groups, as you can see in the slide. So we have a working group that is dedicated to trading, another one to matching and confirmation, a third one to clearing, and then settlement, corporate actions, funding effects, securities financing, funds, including ETF and national specific considerations. So this is a very comprehensive group of associations that are discussing among themselves about what it could mean from a trading perspective, from a clearing perspective, moving on T+1, highlighting all of the possible changes and trying to get a consensus about what are the prerequisites, having in mind the stability of the market first before thinking about a possible moving to T1. Said that, we believe is worth highlighting that BNP Paribas is part of all the 9 sub-working groups, and this is really an enormous effort in terms of participation, in terms of discussion, in terms of answering to all the questions that the secretariat of the task force asked to its participants, with the aim of collating all the feedbacks and being able across industry-wise to have a paper to be then submitted to the market authorities to show the evidences of the analysis for the market authority to have clarity around what could be, worth focusing on for the European market. If I think about what is happening these days, because as you, Alan, said, there is a lot, going on. You must have heard about the ESMA, so the European Securities and Market Authority Association, having having published a call for action the past week. So this is keeping us, very busy in terms of discussions ongoing at industry level again, because the deadline for answering to such call of action has been set on mid-December, December 15. So it will be our priority, to lead any discussion ongoing and to be part of, the evidences that need to be brought to ESMA, considering that what ESMA requested this time is not an opinion, but is data. So they need evidences from Europe and real data to be provided. And now the discussion at industry level is around what type of data we should be focused on for the answer to be provided.
That is very comprehensive and very helpful. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Alan.
I stay with you though, and can I ask you a little bit about cash management? And surely the impact on the FX required is really going to be a problem here. Can you tell us a bit about cash management and FX and how that's going to work?
Yeah, sure. What is worth saying about FX? So the decision of the SEC to shorten the settlement cycle of US securities settling in DTC aim at increasing liquidity in the stock market by allowing investors to buy and sell shares faster. So to meet the new T+1 timeline, buy side along with the sell side clients shall be launching a detailed review of their processes and their interactions with their custodians. This is because, non-equipped clients or those with a limited US presence might decide to outsource several critical processes to their custodians or to external providers. Of course, alternative solutions exist, such as opening a desk in the US or hiring an operational team working during US hours. However, we know that this option can be costly and might not properly or completely solve the issues that might be happening. Some actors might also decide to outsource these to their custodians, and in this case, there are several points that should be considered. And if, from the theory, we want to pass on like a concrete example, we can consider what could be happening in case of a Singaporean asset manager managing an Australian asset owner and investing in the US equity market. All, of course, is expressed in Singapore time, so East plus 13 hours. And it's worth highlighting that the US market closes at 5 a.m. and the asset manager has only up to 9 a.m. to perform all the liquidity tasks to generate an FX instruction and execute an FX transaction. And as you can see from the slide, 9 a.m. is even earlier than the affirmation cutoff. So that's why, as I was mentioning before, there is a call to action for clients that need to start looking at alternative solutions. And now it comes to us, so how BNP can help in this process. I mean, a top-tier bank like BNP Paribas can offer a global presence. And, as some of my colleagues were mentioning before, we have an historical expertise in execution, asset administration, middle office effects, settlement and post-trade capability. Working with a universal bank, approach, BNP Paribas gives you access to a full suite of FX solution with multiple awards, technologies, and STP FX capabilities for custody and non-custody accounts. We believe that these innovative technologies offer a unique and broad client experience with direct connectivity to their platforms. So brokers, middle officer, custodians can connect us via API, Swift, or flat files, and we can help our clients securing their funding. And all these points are part of our in-house bespoke solutions that we can put in place to help our client not only to meet the new market requirement, but also to exceed their expectation. So at the end, the best solution is the one allowing yourself to focus your resources on your core activities where you have market advantages and expertise related to investor returns. What we are offering is a partnership as such in outsourcing the key supporting elements of your platform to a trusted partner that is aligned with your ultimate success.
Thank you. Now, Emmanuel, could I ask you a question? Brian said at the beginning quite clearly the big problem here is a lack of time. And this is surely particularly painful for clients who are located in Europe or even more so in Asia. They've got a very small window to instruct, especially, I guess, if they want their trades to be affirmed on trade date. So what can we do to help clients with this challenge?
Thank you, Alan, for the question. So indeed, we have a solution that is called execution to custody, which is a partnership between our broker-dealer arm and Securities services to offer clients an efficient way to manage the settlement cycle and the pressure it brings on their back and middle office. This solution streamlines the flow between trading and post-trading. So when a client have an account, an old execution account and custody account at BNP Paribas, we manage the end-to-end transaction life cycle for them. We eliminate the need for the client to instruct the settlement. So in the context of T+1, this is extremely helpful. As once a trade is executed, our broker-dealer will automatically send the settlement instruction to Securities services, which will always happen on T+0 before the affirmation cutoff. We then proceed with the settlement flow, sending the client all the status updates until the settlement confirmation.
Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the questions that are coming in. But before we get to them, there's a lot of talk about clients having to change their operating model. And are you actually seeing many clients moving ahead with this? And if so, could you highlight what the key benefits would be, particularly maybe for global custody clients?
Yes, sure. In fact, we saw a lot of interest in our execution to custody solution, where clients are looking to leverage our infrastructure to reduce the pressure on their system, to reduce the operational risk and become more efficient. So in a nutshell, I would summarize into 4 benefits. It's a full straight-through process. Client doesn't need to instruct settlement. We will do it automatically on their behalf on trade date. It's an efficient service because clients only have to send the trade order and we will manage the end-to-end transactions lifecycle. It results in a faster turnaround on exception. Exception management allows for prioritization of outstanding items to meet regulatory timelines. And it reduces the risk. You eliminate the operational risk of missing the settlement deadline in a US T+1 environment.
Thank you. Now, maybe we can move to the middle office area, and I understand there's been a lot of the work and issues are going to actually come out in the middle office area, and we have an expert from our middle office processing here with us today. So can we pass across to Dilia, and could you tell us a bit about what's happening to support middle office clients at BNP Paribas?
Thank you, Alan, and hello, everyone. Yes, so there are indeed a lot of responsibility, will fall on our middle office clients to ensure they are ready for T+1. And these are ensure that trades are sent to BNP Paribas middle office on trade date for the allocation, confirmation, and instruction process to be completed by 7 p.m. Eastern time on trade date. Ideally, clients should have relevant front office and operational presence in the US time zone to be able to manage any queries, discuss with their brokers to ensure adherence to the timeline. For stock lending transactions, ensure sale notifications are sent to the stock lender within any revised deadline. For those clients classed as registered investment advisors, understand the regulation and the requirements and how they impact them. And finally, ensure trades are funded and FXs are executed in good time to reduce the impact of overdrafts. So as you can see, Alan, there are a number of things clients need to do, and BNP Paribas is there to support them.
So we have some questions coming in, but we will still have time to take some more if you want to send them in. And those that we don't get to answer on this webinar, we will try and get back to you with good answers afterwards. So I'm just having a quick look at the questions, and I should say that we're joined also by some other BNP Paribas experts on the call who we might direct questions to if they're relevant to the areas of expertise. But the first question I think really is probably for Brian. Brian, it's a very straightforward but a very important question. And that is, Brian, who is most impacted by the move to T+1 settlement?
Well, thank you. It's a great question. It's really hard to find anyone who wouldn't be impacted by this move. But I think the biggest and heaviest lift is going to come on the banks and brokers primarily, just given the scope and scale of operations. But I don't think it's limited to that. Given the differing resource pools and technology efforts at our asset manager clients and others, I think there is going to be a heavy lift to really be able to upgrade operation efficiency to meet the T+1 standard. And I think there's going to be a lot of need to leverage, provider products that are out there to help to move to this, as it really does shorten the time frame that most people have to really affect an efficient settlement. So I think it's not limited to any one part of the industry. There's differing levels of it, but I think that the banks and brokers really have the biggest lift to comply.
Okay. One of our experts that we have on the line is Françoise Gert, who's an expert in our execution to custody capabilities. So maybe I could ask you to take this question, Françoise. Is your execution to custody solution live?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. So yes, our execution to custody solution is live, and actually it has been launched in 3 years ago, when further to the integration of Deutsche Bank prime brokerage and electronic trading, and the recent integration of Exane. So we have a global execution capabilities worldwide, including the US. And the solution is live with client base in Asia, in Europe, in US, and it could be with a global custody setup or local custody setup.
Okay, so it's live. And we have a question here, which I'd like to pass to Mirko Navillo, who's one of our MFS technical experts. And I think this is a really important question. And it's about FX settlement. And it's saying, what would be the consequences for FX settlement within CLS? So that's continuous linked settlement. I think this is a very important question, Mirko. Could you answer it?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the question. Yes, for sure. CLS is conducting some studies and has anticipated at least 20% of the current activity executing on their platform will move outside CLS. Even if CLS studies the possibility of extending its submission cutoffs, the associated complexity would not match the T+1 May 2024 period. Because of that, the industry is anticipating an increase of the FX gross settlement, mostly with the associated custodian. Solution like the BNP Paribas ones presented earlier by Silvia can help our clients to accelerate their FX execution and reduce the number of deals settled outside CLS. BNP Paribas also offers netting solution for flows that are outside CLS. And last but not least, if our clients combine our FX solution with our custody offer, CLS is not needed at all.
Okay. Another online expert that we have is Matthew Pearson from our middle office business. He's a project manager working in T+1. And Matthew, there's a couple of questions here that I could put your way. The first one is, what is BNP Paribas doing to support middle office clients?
Thanks, Alan. First, I'd like to say that our offer is for buy-side clients. And as we've said earlier in the presentation, our clients need to do a number of things to be ready for T+1. Therefore, to support our clients in the transition, the middle office teams have been analysing data on trade integration and matching timestamps and sharing this data with our clients to understand their exposure to US trading, discussing with clients to understand their target organisation around T+1 and to get to the best operating model. And for that, we've shared a dedicated questionnaire. We've also been working and reaching out to third parties, so brokers to understand the confirmation process and custodians to understand the instruction cutoff and providing that feedback back to our clients. We've been doing this in dedicated governance and defining that governance and communication channel with clients. We're also offering US operational time zone presence, as well as assisting clients who are classed as registered investment advisors with the relevant data requirements. And finally, we can give clients access to an FX market solution to help them fund their foreign investments. Whilst these apply to our current buy-side middle office clients, we'd be more than happy to share our T+1 middle office offer to any other clients who would be interested.
Thanks, Matthew. And then there's a second question here that I think you could maybe answer as well. Let me just get it. It's from a middle office standpoint. How is BNP Paribas involved with the market to ensure that all involved parties are taking action to account for T+1?
Absolutely. So in addition to reaching out to the third parties, which I've mentioned, we've been very busy ensuring we're working with other organizations across the market. These include industry groups such as DTCC, AFME, SIFMA, and the Investment Association. We've helped to define the requirements for the DTCC trade archival tool, which is necessary to obtain information for clients classed as registered investment advisors. And finally, we've been discussing with front office providers to understand their offer to clients and any changes that need to be made.
Fine. And then, Emmanuel, there's a question here that comes up quite often, I think. It's, can you clarify who is impacted by Rule 15c6 and 24(2)? So who's actually impacted by these rules?
You are right, Alan. There are many questions about who are impacted by those rules. So, and we had a discussion with SIFMA no later than last week about that, because there were some uncertainty around the impacted participants. So the rule 15c6.2 is a rule for US broker-dealer. So it is mandatory for US broker-dealer to affirm their transaction by the end of trade date. So it means that if it is mandatory for US broker-dealers, they have some reporting to provide to the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so it means that for the US broker-dealer, they want to work with a counterparty or investment manager that will not make them not matching or affirming the transaction by 9 p.m. So it's mandatory for US broker-dealer, but highly recommended for investment manager. And as part of the regulation, it says that the broker-dealer must rewrite procedure and policies. And as part of those procedures and policy, the broker-dealers usually include their execution fees. And so they may include execution fee that would be higher for risky counterparty, or for counterparty, they put them on risk for their settlement rate and affirmation rate. So 15c6.2 is mandatory for US broker-dealer and highly recommended for investment manager. And for the rule 2042, this is a rule that applies to registered investment advisor who must keep record of allocation, confirmation, and affirmation with a date and a stamp. So it means that registered advisor will have to implement solutions that allow them to report to the Securities and Exchange Commission the details of their transactions.
Okay, and there's a question here that fits in quite neatly to that, and it is, let me just see if I can read it. Under Rule 15c6.2, if the trade is not affirmed by 9 p.m., what is the penalty that happens due to this regulatory requirement?
So there is no penalties per se. We cannot compare this to the CSDR in Europe, where you have penalties in case of late matching or a late settlement. But what can happen is that if you affirm your transaction by 9 p.m., it means that the transaction will have will very likely settle during the nighttime cycle of DTCC. If you affirm after 9 p.m., it will settle later through the settlement cycle. So it can settle on time, on settlement date, so on T+1, but later during the process. And so DTCC will add up additional settlement fees depending on what time the transaction is affirmed and what time the transaction will settle during the nighttime cycle. So this is an incentive for the client to affirm their transaction by 9 p.m.
Thank you. And then Brian, question here, I think mainly for you. Given the new T+1 framework, is it possible to execute trades with a non-standard T+1 settlement cycle? In other words, could a broker agree and then settle with their client on T+3 or T+5 if they wanted to?
Sure, that'll still be available on a trade-by-trade basis to construct an agreement between the broker and the client, for a different settlement that, obviously has been something we've done for many years, right, in the market, even going back to when we were T+5 all the way down to now. There are differing needs for differing settlements. The one thing I might add to that is that as we get to T+1 and then T0 is sort of the only next step after that, I think shortening the settlement cycle becomes a little bit harder. So you might see people having to elongate the settlement cycle to back to T+2 for certain transactions.
Okay, very good. And then Jan, there's a question here that I think is very relevant to your job and probably top of your mind right now. What type of manual processes are on BNP's side that you're looking to automate? Are there manual processes left, and if so, which ones are disappearing?
Thanks, Alan. That's a very good question. The good news is that today we have very few processes that remain manual. And T+1 is really giving us an opportunity to take a hard look at these processes. We've been working diligently to increase those STP rates, the straight-through processing. Specifically, if I may focus on this area, on exception management. So example, notifying a client of matching discrepancy within a cash tolerance, adding new auto repair capabilities in case of missing static, are top of mind. But for other example, with processes that are sitting across businesses, think securities lending and trade processing, we're also coming up with automated solutions to optimize fail management for our clients and provide them securities lending where applicable in case of insufficient stock. I think, to echo what Brian was just saying, the goal for us is ultimately to future-proof our platforms and eliminate completely manual intervention.
Okay, that's good. And Emmanuel, here's another question for you. People are very keen on fines. Are there any new fines for late matching or settlement failures?
Well, as I mentioned, there is no new fine. So what at the moment, we can imagine that if the settlement rate or the affirmation rate doesn't reach what the Securities and Exchange Commission has in mind, in the future, we don't know if there will be no new fine. But at the moment, what we can say is that the financial incentive are the higher settlement cost at DTCC if you do not affirm by 9 p.m. and the fact that the US broker-dealer wants to show good affirmation rate to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they can increase their execution fees for the risky counterparty.
Okay. Françoise, could I go back to you? There's a question here about execution to custody, and it's saying if all the executions go to one broker, what about the best execution requirements?
So regarding execution, we offer best execution. We offer access to different venues, internalizers, MTF, classic exchange, and we can really fill all the best execution requirements required by MiFID II.
So that's not a problem?
Not a problem.
Super. Now, there's a question here, Sylvia, really about the European task force. There's two questions, so let me just put them together. The thing is, what's happening with the task forces, and how will BNP Paribas keep clients up to date with this? So can you give us an update about what's happening, and how are we going to pass this information on to clients?
Sure. As I was saying, before, the task forces are meant to respond to questions that have been asked by the secretariat of the task force. So we, being part of all the task forces, we already answered to all the questions, and some of the answers were also collated by us in a vis-a-vis conversation that we have with clients. As soon as there is an information about a market information which is relevant, we communicate usually through the market update channel. And once things are settled and we know the impacts client-wise, we follow the market update with the client update, which confirms any client impact and any specific consideration that should be taken away from our clients. And T+1 specifically, we are getting a lot of questions from our client. We had, Matthew was saying that middle office wise, we sent out questionnaires to clients to collate their feedbacks and some of the information which are really very relevant for us. So we have this open channel of communication that says, as soon as any information is available, we are, our priority is to make it also available to our clients through the usual channels. And we are, reviewing the package that we shared already with everybody with regards to T+1. We have these bilateral calls. So if any question, is relevant to be asked, please don't hesitate. We are here to help. And the same, from us towards our client, disclosing any relevant information that is happening in the market, like the ESMA, call for action that I was mentioning before. So this is really, our priority to keep everyone up to date with regards to what is going on.
Okay, that's good. Jan, there's a question here, which I think you could probably help us with. We see a lot of issues with SSIs, where we need to reach out to custodians, not just BNP. How can we make sure that SSIs are set up correctly for STP and T+1?
Again, a very interesting question. When we talk about SSI issues, we're talking about possible mismatches, but we're also down the line talking about fails. So the question really is, like, how do we avoid or optimize the number of trades that are matching our affirmation rate, and also limit the number of fails? So there are a number of market solutions here that are available, specifically offered by BNP Paribas, one of them being GC Direct, where we are connected to the central repository that is maintained by DTC, and collecting information and static data from the counterparties and players on the street. This is meant to optimize your matching rates. And I would say, or I would encourage the person asking the question to really reach out to BNP and engage in bilateral discussions, specifically if we are seeing a high number of fails, on the ways that we can assist and reduce that ahead of the go live with T+1.
And then Mirko, there's a question here. I guess it's asking for clarification. Somebody's saying, did you say that roughly 20% of FX trades will not be CLS eligible when we move to T+1? I mean, that sounds like a problem.
Yeah, as I was mentioning before, the 20% is a study that CLS has published, and is the 20% of the trade that are currently on CLS. So this does not include, of course, the numbers that are already outside CLS. So it's 20% of the current activity conducted on the CLS platforms.
Okay. Emmanuel, there's a question here. With regards to, so always questions about trade affirmations. With regards to the trade affirmation in DTC on trade date, is that something similar to the pre-matching in Euroclear? Is there any plan to introduce a fail charge for US equities similar to the fail charge for US treasuries? So two questions really.
Well, actually, the way the US market work, it starts with the confirmation, so allocation confirmation right after the execution. So the confirmation is really the fact that both parties, the US broker-dealer and its counterparty, are comparing the economic details of the transaction and the SSI. And then you have the affirmation that is for the affirming party to confirm the broker ID that is entered at DTCC and to match that the trade detail of the investment manager are in line with the confirm ID that the broker dealer enter into DTCC. So I cannot say that it's one per one, but the confirmation and affirmation process in the US is similar to the pre-matching and matching process in other markets.
Okay.
And talking about the fines, again, so we already addressed this question earlier. At the moment, there are no fines or penalties that are announced in case of late affirmation on the market.
Well, people are very keen in fines and penalties. And there's another question here about what about buy-ins, Emmanuel? Are there going to be more buy-ins because of T+1?
Well, in terms of rules, the buying rules are not going to change. They are remaining the same. So now we may see right after the transition, maybe a higher late settlement rate, and so it may increase the number of buy-ins. So I think that right after the transition, we will probably see some time for adjustment that can lead to more settlement fails, so increased demand for failed trade coverage and maybe more buy-ins.
Okay.
Can I complement that, Alan?
Yeah, please do, Jan. Please do.
This perfect answer from Emmanuel. Indeed, number of fails that we expect for weeks following the conversion weekend. One other thing I would mention is that T+1 is effectively reintroducing the misalignment between markets life cycle. Specifically, if you look at European jurisdiction, right, some of the markets will still be on T+2 when the US will have migrated to T+1. So you can imagine for multi-listed securities specifically, the challenges that it could represent if you're buying and selling in different market jurisdiction. It is being said there are discussions at the market level around potential buying relief for those specific securities, but there's nothing really written right now at the SEC level, and there's absolutely more to come on that topic.
We're coming really close to the end of all this, but Emmanuel, there's a quick question here. Maybe you could answer. How does your client deal with T+1 if they have no presence in the US?
Well, in fact, BNP Paribas, as a global integrated bank, we have various solutions across our business line to support our international clients. So as part of the project, we scrutinize all the solutions that we have in place. So the first one is definitely our operating model with a dual office based in the US and Portugal, which help us to work on the exception early in the morning. But we have also various integrated solutions like the execution to custody solution that we mentioned earlier, which really is a partnership between our security services and our broker arm. We have also our FX solution that goes through the auto FX or the FX on demand, thanks to the Follow the Sun organization with the FX desk across the world. Obviously, we have our middle office solution that were well described by Matthew earlier. And finally, I think what is also very important is the fact that across all the need that the client may have for the T+1 and all the product that was developed by DTCC, we are partnering and proposing solution for everything. So we are a participant of TradeSuite. We have our institutional ID at TradeSuite. We can offer self-affirmation to the client that want to have their own TradeSuite ID and go through solution like CTM, Match to Instruct at DTCC. As Jan mentioned, we can work with DTCC for the SSI. We can feed alert with our with our solution for GC Direct. So I think for everything that was developed by DTCC, we are working as a partnership and we have solution as well. So I think globally, thanks to our global model, we have solution that can help international clients.
Super. Well, that really means that we're out of time. We've covered an awful lot of ground. We've answered an awful lot of questions. If there are some questions that we've missed, we'll try and get back to you with good answers. If you need to speak to us more about this subject, reach out to your client services manager and we'll engage with you on anything that you need to know about T+1 in the US. So all that remains is for me to thank everyone who's joined us in this webinar. Thank you for your time. Thank you for enjoying us. But thanks most of all to the panel and to the experts that joined us at the end. You've really educated us. You've informed us. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
Thank you.